Okay, so it's Halloween, which means it's time to start what I plan on being a yearly tradition here on the channel. That means that, I plan on doing this once every year. So this will be the first of two videos that I'll be posting today. I'm going to be doing a countdown of my favorite and most disappointing horror movies of the past year. That means Halloween to Halloween. I had considered to do it like by year, but since I'm doing this on Halloween, why not do Halloween to Halloween? I mean, that makes the most sense. And I didn't do that just because it allowed me to get my number one favorite movie in for this year. But it kind of might seem that way, but that was not the overall thought process behind it, but it just kind of worked out that way. Or this video is going to be my most disappointing horror movies of the last year. And so that's going, like I said, from Halloween to Halloween. And this covers all kinds of horror. So like anything that is included in the horror genre. So that includes straight up horror, psychological horror, horror comedies, horror thrillers, anything that falls into the horror genre is included in this. So since this is the most disappointing horror movies video, I did want to point out that this is most disappointing in my opinion. This is not, some of these movies aren't necessarily bad movies. They are just ones that I was either looking forward to and was disappointed in, or ones that I thought had promise but didn't live up to their potential. And I'm not going to be doing like reviews of these. This is just going to be why they are on this list, basically. Some of them I've already done full reviews on, and some I plan to do full reviews on in the future. So I just wanted to kind of quickly go over why I consider them to be the most disappointing horror movies I've seen in the last year. Not all of these are necessarily bad movies. Not all of them are going to be on everyone's worst movie list or whatever, because this is just movies that have been disappointing, personally disappointing to me for various reasons. I'm going to try and keep both of these videos as spoiler free as possible. Hopefully I can do that. Without further ado, let's get into the list. Up first, we have number 10. So number 10 is the new psychological horror movie that Steven Soderbergh put out this year. He had a busy year as far as releases, but this is Presence. This is a movie it's about a family that moves into a haunted house. And the thing about this is they decided to film it from the perspective of the entity that is haunting the house. And I thought that was a very interesting way to go about it. I thought that was a very cool overall idea on something different, a way to do something different, something unique. The problem is it didn't really work. The plot line is fine overall, and there are some really neat shots in this. There isn't a ton of substance to it. It came off more as like Steven Soderbergh discovers drones more than anything else. It felt like he discovered this technology and he wanted to use it in some way. So he came up with an excuse of using it, and it didn't work. I think that the concept is interesting. It just ultimately didn't live up to any real potential it might have had. So that is why it is number 10. Number 9. So number 9, this one kind of breaks my heart to be on this list, but this is one that I didn't really completely hate the movie. I didn't really dislike the movie really, but I think that it should have been better than it was. This is Hell House LLC lineage, and I have been a fan of the Hell House LLC movies since the first time I saw the first one. I have a soft spot in my heart for found footage. I watch tons of found footage stuff. Most of them are awful, but Hell House LLC is just different. And part of what makes it so good is the fact that it has this ongoing lore and this ongoing mythology in it. So I was excited to see with Lineage, since it is the final film in the series, it's the last one that Stephen Cognetti is going to do. I was interested to see how they were going to wrap up everything that has come before. I mean, there's been 4 movies before this one, and there's a lot of lore. And I was excited to see how they went about tying everything up. So, disappointment number 1, they don't tie everything up. It answers most of the things that have been laid out along the way. It also adds in several questions that are never answered. And for a final film in a 5-film series, that is disappointing. Additionally, since this one was not found footage, I feel like it wasn't as entertaining of a movie as the other ones were. I don't know how you could have told this story without it being traditionally shot instead of found footage, but I feel like it kind of disconnects it from the series of movies as a whole, and I just really hoped for more on this. That's why it's at number 9. Number 8. For number 8, we have The Long Walk, which is the Stephen King adaptation that came out last month. And I do have a full video with book comparisons that I just posted last week, I think. So that is available if you would like to hear my more in-depth thoughts about the movie itself and about how it compares to the source material. That is available on my channel. I feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities with this, and I don't like some of the things that they changed and or cut out from the book. That happens with every adaptation, but I think that there were some things in this that were just, there was no reason to do what they did. The biggest thing is I had really hoped they would improve the ending from the novel, and they didn't do that. They actually made it worse. I didn't have high hopes for this one to begin with, and that's why it is kind of so low on the list. I was really hopeful that maybe we would get something that was better, but I didn't really expect it to be. That's why it's not higher up on the list. If I had been really anticipating this one, if I had been expecting a lot out of it and it ended up being lackluster, it would be higher on the list. But since it wasn't, it didn't. Number 7. So for number 7, we have House on Eden. This is a found footage movie, which I already talked about how much I love found footage. This one was done by Chris Collins, who is Call Me Chris. She is a social media personality. And since we have had a few promising starts from some YouTubers as far as creating horror movies, I thought that hopefully this one would end up being good. It did not. This is not, there was not much I actually liked about this movie. I found it to be very generic. The people were very one-dimensional. The story overall is just extremely generic and very kind of simple. Had we not had like the Philippou brothers have such an amazing start to a career, I think this might not have been so disappointing, because we've seen that people who make their living on social media, that they can create some really great things as far as movies, especially as far as horror movies. So for this one to fall so short, it was very disappointing. And I don't know Call Me Chris. I know of her. I don't watch anything of hers or anything. So it's not like I was a huge fan and was disappointed. I was not really expecting anything spectacular. So that's why it doesn't rank higher on the list. Number 6. Starting to get into the movie I had more faith in, I had more hope were going to be good movies? Are they going to be better movies? This is another one I did do a full video on that you can check out if you want to see my full thoughts. This movie is Companion from January of this year. So first off, I was very disappointed because number one, this was touted as being by the people who made Barbarian, and that is not really true. They were executive producers and stuff, but this was not made by any of them. So, you know, there's disappointment there because I really did like Barbarian. I was disappointed in this almost before I even got to the theater because the trailers kind of give spoilers for the movie and ruin one of the main plot points. I think it would have been much more effective for me personally seeing it the first time if I had not known those details, and knowing those details going in made a large part of the movie feel off because I knew where it was heading, and it kind of ruined some of it for me. If you didn't know those details going in, it might have been a better experience. And also, this suffers from this movie didn't know what it wanted to be thing. I felt like it needed to pick a single lane and stay in that lane as far as what it wanted to be, rather than being this weird, disjointed story that it is. So trying not to go into spoilers too much. If you want to hear a spoiler-filled review, I do have that up on my channel that you can watch. I had high hopes for this one and it fell short. So that is why it is in at number 6. Number 5. Talk about a movie with potential that just doesn't live up to it. Death of a Unicorn. This movie could have been so great. With the cast of this movie being so stacked and so great, there is no excuse for it to be as unentertaining as it kind of is. Overall, I liked the concept of this. I liked the overall kind of throughway plot and actually really enjoyed some of the more character-driven moments in this. But this movie is a mess, and so many things could have been done so much better. I will say that when I first heard about it, when I first saw a trailer for it, I was very hopeful that it was going to be a very good horror comedy. And then my enthusiasm kind of died down after a while because of some reviews and things that I saw, but I still had hopes that it would be better than it ended up being. I'm basing this rating of putting it at number 5 because when I first heard about it, I was very interested and very excited for what it might be, and then it ended up just being very mediocre. There's some parts of this one that I really enjoyed, that I really liked, but it just ultimately did not carry through to the whole movie, and I think that they could have done things so much better with it. That is why it's a disappointing one for me. Number 4. So now we're getting into the really disappointing ones. These top 4 are movies that I was really looking forward to for one reason or another, and just really disappointed me. The first one we have is Scott Derrickson's The Gorge. I knew going into this one that the writer did not have a very good track record, but it was directed by Scott Derrickson and starring Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, and I had a lot of faith that it would be good. There was a lot of good buzz around it. And I guess what makes it even more disappointing that this one wasn't better is because there's a lot of good in this movie. There's a lot of things that worked well, and I think that if they had played to the strengths, this could have been a really fun kind of horror romantic comedy, if that makes sense. The chemistry between Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller is really nice, and the kind of story that they have between them is really cute and well done. It just, everything else about this movie just falls apart. I don't even know any other way to put it besides it that once they trip over the shark in this one, they just keep tripping. it's like a mishmash of all these other films and stories that are kind of all rolled together into this weird, nonsensical thing. And then in the end, they try to pull it back around and have some kind of meaningful ending. And I didn't like it. I didn't care for it. I had very high hopes for the movie overall and how it was going to go. And like I said, there's a lot of positive buzz around this besides just there being a lot of people that I like involved in it. And it just ultimately fell so short. I almost didn't finish watching this one. That's how disappointing and awful it was. Once things started going wrong, they just continued to plummet, and I almost didn't make it through this one. So that is why it's at number 4. Number 3. Where to start with this one? Where do we start with Mickey 17? I didn't read the book before seeing the movie. I didn't know this book existed before I started seeing ads for the movie. I had no idea that the book existed. I'm not a huge fan of Bong Joon-ho's movies in general, but the more I saw about this one and the whole concept of the clones and having multiple Robert Pattinson, multiple Mickeys, knowing how this director's movies usually go, I figured that it would be good for a lot of like commentary on, or like a lot of deep thought, like a very big think piece on cloning and like the ethics and stuff related to that. It's very well tread kind of sci-fi horror thriller material. There's a lot of things that could go into this, and I might have fudged this a little to get this on this list because it's not technically horror in a lot of ways, but it does edge kind of into like thriller, and it does have some darker elements in it. I was not aware of this source material before the movie, and I, after seeing the movie, looked into the source material and found out how different it was from the source material. So were I a fan of the book it's based on, I would have been so pissed. As it is, I was still pissed. This is a retread of like every theme in every Bong Joon-ho movie that has ever been made. Honestly, Snowpiercer covers a lot of the same ground in a much more entertaining and better way. The comedy beats are very hit or miss. The tense moments are very hit or miss. There are moments that are very cringy and moments that are unintentionally funny. And that's never a good sign. But after seeing some of the trailers for this and seeing some of the information about it, I was very much looking forward to seeing this one. And then, like, instant regret. I almost left the theater. I was just so disgusted with this movie and so just disappointed in what it ended up being. Yeah, I feel sorry for the people who liked the original book because they did not get an adaptation of their book. They got whatever this movie was. And so, yeah, so this was just really, really disappointing for me. I had hoped for so much more, and it did none of the things I hoped it would. So that's why it is at number 3. Number 2. I really struggled between the top 2 for this list because of several reasons. Ultimately, the reason that I ended up putting this one where it is because it's not a complete movie. So 28 years later, I'm a huge fan of 28 Days Later. I saw the original in the theater way back in the day. I love Danny Boyle. I love, for the most part, Alex Garland's work. When I heard that Danny Boyle was coming back to the franchise with Alex Garland writing again, I was so excited and I could not wait for it. The initial trailer, which I usually, if there's a movie I'm interested in, I usually try to just watch the first trailer. I don't watch any others because I don't want spoilers. I've talked about that before. And so the first trailer with this, using the Boots poem and everything, it was just so well done. Oh, it was so well done. And I was so excited. I was so excited. And then I watched it. The disappointment was real. And I honestly walked out of the theater and was saying, I don't think I liked it. This movie just wasn't at all what I was expecting. And it's very weird, and I think I know where they're headed with a lot of the narrative threads, and I'm not into it. We'll have to see though once the second half comes out in January. Maybe it'll save the whole thing. I very much doubt that though. I guess the movie that I was envisioning is not the movie that I got, and that is on me more than anything else. The whole plot of this movie is just very weird and forced and just not enjoyable. It's not something it's not something I enjoyed watching, and it had been something I had been looking forward to for so long. That is why it is the second most disappointing horror movie from the last year, because I was so looking forward to this one, and it sucked. Now, as I said, the reason that it is at number 2 and not number 1, because it could have been, is because we don't have the full narrative of what the story is. So we only have half of the story, and so I didn't feel right putting it at number 1. However, since the second half comes out in January, it's very possible that the second half of it will be number 1 next year. This one was just super disappointing, and that's why it's number 2. Number 1. If anyone has watched my channel, has watched my reviews for any amount of time, they probably could have picked this one out. That is Weapons. This movie gets so much glaze, and I hated it so much. Done by Zach Kreger, the writer-director of Barbarian, which came out of nowhere a few years ago and was one of my favorite horror movies from that year, and is still it's very highly regarded by me and by others, and I really enjoy it and think that it's delightfully twisted. I was very hopeful that Kreger's second horror movie would be just as good. It wasn't. Like I said, I know so many people really liked this one, connected with it, and say about how great it is. I don't like this movie at all. In fact, the further I get away from watching it, the more I dislike it. The more I think about it, the more I hate it. And you don't want that from a movie that you were looking forward to. Since, to me, on every level, this is just a little bit worse than 28 years later. And since this is a full story, I decided that it should be number 1. If you want to hear my full thoughts on it, you can watch the video. I don't necessarily know that you'll want to, because it's basically a whole video of me just ranting and raving about what doesn't work in the movie. But that happens. You know, you can always have a movie from writers, directors, actors that you really enjoy, and for some reason things just don't work, and it ends up being disappointing. And so this had a writer, director, plus actors that I very much enjoy, and every single part of this movie disappointed me. That is why it tops the list, and then why it ultimately won the number 1 spot over 28 years later. There are some other movies I thought about including on this list, and there are movies from the last year I have not yet watched, which I'm sure could have gone on this list. There are several movies that I wanted to see, but due to life circumstances this year, I wasn't able to watch yet. So hopefully I'll get to watch at least some of them by the time I do my year-end list of movies that I plan on doing. That was my personal list of the 10 most disappointing horror movies from the last year. And I will be posting my list of favorite horror movies from the past year almost right after this one, hopefully. So I hope that you will come back for that one. Yeah, I think I'm going to end it there. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, listening to me ramble on, and I hope that I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.